Hello everyone, it's Mr. E299, and today I want to talk to you about ComicsGate. I know I haven't talked about it much on my channel. I try to stay away from drama all that much, but with recent events, I feel that it's time that I do talk about it and share my viewpoint on it. To me, ComicsGate started as a consumer revolt against bad books with poor writing, poor art, forced diversity, and heavy-handed politics. You know, we wanted to read good books, and we just weren't getting them. And when we complained about it, we were called racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobe, etc. But as time went on, it changed, it metamorphosed into a fight against creators who seem to have an outright disdain for their fan base. It didn't seem to matter whether or not these fans were criticizing them or not. The pros just seemed to be, it seemed that they viewed themselves to be above us, as if they were the gods sitting on Mount Olympus, and we were nothing but mere mortals. One example of this is Max Bemis, who got good reviews from the community for his Moon Knight book. Everybody was talking positively about it, and then he made tweets that that seemed to be directed at us that were just completely unwarranted. They were insulting, they were vile, and they were completely unwarranted and unnecessary. And now it seems that ComicsGate has changed a second time into its third iteration after Richard C. Meyer's Diversity in Comics and John Malin's Jawbreakers Lost Souls, after having a very successful, I believe it was Indiegogo. They had a very successful crowdfunding campaign for their graphic novel, and it was picked up and then dropped by Antarctic Press after backlash from not only pros but also, surprisingly, comic shop owners. Now, personally, that is one thing that I don't understand, because we have heard tales of so many shops closing in the past couple years due to poor sales from bad books. And, Diversity in Comics raised, I believe it is almost $300,000 now for his graphic novel. That's just from crowdfunding. You would think a book that was able to raise that much and clearly has a lot of fan interest would be something that shops would be excited to carry in their stores. But, it seems to me that, due to Diversity in Comics' confrontational past with pros like Slott and Wade and Mags Visaggio and Michelle Perez, it seems that his past confrontations with them have labeled him as an outsider and someone to be blacklisted. It seems to me that a sort of cabal is forming in the comics book industry, that if you're not with them, you're against them, and they will exercise their influence in order to keep you out. The greatest example of this is when Mark Waid contacted Antarctic Press about them picking up Jawbreakers. Now, Antarctic Press has come out and said that Waid was not threatening to them, And, I've heard conflicting stories of that. But whether or not they were threatened is immaterial. What seems to be the issue with me is that Wade contacted them at all. This was none of his business. The deal between the Jawbreakers team and Antarctic Press was something that only had to do with them. It was not any of the pros' business. The comic shops had every right to not pick up the book, but it seemed to be a bad business decision, considering that many comic shops are just struggling to survive nowadays. That they would turn down a book that had so much fan interest and had raised so much from their crowdfunding campaign to show that there was in fact a demand for this kind of story. And it just seems to me that comics is becoming a battlefield, in my opinion. We hear from a lot of people talking about a culture war. I think it's officially here. I think we are fighting to, save a industry and a medium that we love, because we know that if things keep going the way they're going, things will just keep declining, and eventually there's going to be another crash, and some companies may not recover, and that would be a terrible shame. But I can't even put all the blame on the side of the pros and the shop owners, because there have been a number of people who, while they may support ComicsGate, have been acting very immaturely and very cruelly, specifically to the creators of the Rags graphic novel. They are also being published by Antarctic Press, and after the incident, they were being pressured and, insulted to break away from Antarctic Press because they dropped Diversity in Comics book. And I've said on Twitter that the matter between, Jawbreakers and Antarctic Press being dropped is entirely between them. Any of the other creators that work with Antarctic Press, they have their own deals to worry about. They have their own books that they're working on creating and getting published. And they had no involvement with the disillusion between Jawbreakers and Antarctic Press. It's not their business, and they had nothing to do with it. And I've said as much multiple times. I mean, to be fair, I don't blame Antarctic Press for dropping the book. I mean, the backlash really seemed to have come out of left field. They're always telling people to, if you don't like the books that are being published, go make your own. And, well, Diversity in Comics did that. He and John Malin and another man, I believe his name is Brett Smith, they created their own book. And it got way more funding than they were ever asking for. And it was going to be picked up. And, you can't say, go make your own book, and then when they do that, block their book from being published. It's hypocritical. And, again, I don't blame Antarctic Press for doing that, because they're a small company. They don't have that big of a presence in the industry. I mean, they're not like Marvel and DC and Image where you could find their books at every store. Like, I checked their website of the list of stores that they do work with, and my local comic shop is not on there. So, you know, their reach isn't that wide. And, I could almost assure you that they were not prepared for the backlash that they got for working with DNC. And I gotta say, it's really appalling, Lord, that people took pleasure and pride in breaking up that deal. You could see on Twitter people like Max Visaggio and I believe Michelle Perez were quite proud of themselves for, pressuring, this small publisher into dropping the book. I say that's quite disgusting. The industry is in dire straits, and whenever a book comes out that has fans' attention, you should want it to do well, because maybe that's going to get more people interested in comics as a whole. Maybe it's going to get more people to buy your comics, and what they did really shows me that they do not care about the industry as a whole. That they care about their clique, their in-group, and sustaining their positions as the gatekeepers of comics. And if things go the way they're going, I fear that, 20, 30 years from now, we may not even have any comics to enjoy. And I am sincerely afraid of that happening. Everybody, this has been Mr. E2099. Like, comment, and subscribe. I have another manga recommendation planned, so look forward to that. And I will see you all later.